All right. So we'll look at the basic building blocks of Buddha's teaching today, and among those, we'll look at one. Um, the three most important aspects of his teaching are here on your screen right now. One is anicca, the other one is dukkha, and the third one is anatta. Right. Anicca is the concept of impermanence, the fact that everything is changing, that whatever is in the current moment, that will change. And it's a continuous process of change. Dukkha is the concept of stress, or unsatisfactoriness, or suffering, which basically is everywhere, from birth to death. And anatta is actually one of the deeper concepts of impersonality. The fact that whatever is happening is not happening to you per se. It is happening because it is happening. It's a deeper concept. We'll probably enter that a little bit later. We need a lot of preparation to understand the concepts of anatta. So we'll try to deal with the slightly more pervasive and easier concepts to understand. And obviously, the easiest of the three to understand, relate to, and use in your daily life is the concept of dukkha. So today we'll talk about that, dukkha with a smile. So we'll talk a little bit about the definitions of it, what it means, understanding dukkha, recognizing it, and overcoming it. Right. So we'll talk about these aspects. First, we'll try to look at understanding this concept of dukkha. And then I'll try to explain how do you recognize that in the world around you? How do you recognize that in you, in your mind, in your body? And how do you start to overcome it? These are, of course, concepts that have been discussed, and there is lengths of commentary on some of these things, and I could talk just about these three things for a few days. Actually, it's probably is the only thing that we talk about when we go to the retreats, meditation retreats as well. So it's a very deep topic. However, what I'd like to do today is to just touch upon all of these aspects and allow you to start marinating on these and trying to apply them. Right. So to start with, I think it's very important to understand where all of this came from and how it originated. So I'll start with what the Buddha said upon reaching enlightenment. So the words are there. I'll read that out, and then I'll take you through the meaning of the words. These are supposed to be the first words that the Buddha uttered to himself. He says, Aneka jati samsaran sandavisam anibbisan gahakarakanga vesanto dukkha jati punapuna gahakaraka dittosi punage hangane kahasi sabbate phasuka bhagga gahakutanga visankitan visankaragatan chittam tanaha nankaya majjaga. So this is in the language that he used for his teaching, which was Pali, local language of the kingdom that he was born to. One of the reasons he used Pali was that firstly, he wanted the teaching to be common, easily understandable. Secondly, he also wanted to try and avoid using Sanskrit because some of the words were um, overloaded, right? So some of the words that were used in Sanskrit had too many meanings to it, too many imports, too many connotations, too many biases. So he wanted to completely avoid using the language of Sanskrit so that he didn't have to go and clarify what the words meant. So he picked a language that's more common and that was previously not used for teaching. All right, so we'll try and read and understand these words. Aneka jati sansaran sandhavisam anibbisan gahakarakanga vesanto dukkha jati punapuna. So he says, innumerable times I have been born to this world and running, looking to find the builder of my house. And failing to find the builder, I've been born again and again to stress and suffering. Very high level statement. We'll try and kind of go a little deep into that when we go to the next few slides. So here he's basically saying, every time I am born, every time I see things around me, there is so much stress, there is so much suffering. I've always been, every time I see that, I want to get out of it. Every time I see suffering around me, every time I see stress, every time I see pain, every time I see death, every time I see disease, I want to come out of it. But all of these lives and all of these moments, I have not been able to, that is my whole objective, is to try and come out of the pain. And I've been running and searching and going around trying to see how to get out of this pain, how to get out of this stress. So that's the first words. So the second part of that, Gahakaraka ditthosi, punange hangane kahasi, sabbate phasuka bhagga, gahakutang visankithan, visankaragatan chittan, tanahanankaya majjaga. So he says, in the previous part, he says, I've been running around looking for who built this house where so much suffering is there. And here he says, now, upon enlightenment, upon understanding, I have seen the builder of this house. And Buddha has, most of his teachings have similes. So he is, here he uses the house as a simile for his body, for your body and mind. So he says all rafters have been destroyed, the roof has been destroyed, the whole building is now destroyed, the whole building of suffering and stress is destroyed. Visankaragatan chittam, having reached a state of no further emotional attachments, no further cravings. Tanahanankaya majjaga. No further cravings arise and no further stress and suffering arises in me. So he basically summarizes this whole thing and explains and introduces the concept of his entire teaching in these first two verses, where he says, there is suffering everywhere. And my whole life, I've been going around trying to see how to overcome this suffering. Now, having understood that the suffering is caused because of my own attachment to the world, my own attachments to everything around me, I cease those attachments. I stop those emotional excitations. And with that, I end my suffering. So that is kind of what he's trying to mean with that, right? So the meaning of that, I just explained that, but I've kind of put in a couple of lines here. And I call this my opinion because this is my understanding. This may not, there are several commentaries on the teachings of the Buddha. And one of the things that I personally try to do is whenever I'm trying to give an opinion, I try to say this is my opinion, because there are several ways of understanding the teachings, and it's important that you have your own understanding rather than just import what somebody else is saying. So I just call this my opinion. So what he's basically trying to say is, if you have the more appropriate understanding of existence around you, can remove stress, can remove suffering, right? So so today what we'll try and do in the next few minutes is to try and understand what this dukkha is, because dukkha is a very controversial word. Whenever you say dukkha, it seems like a very negative connotation. And especially among, I think, traditional Hindu recognition of Buddha, I think a lot of the people associate Buddha with being a person who is a little bit on the negative side, because he kept saying there is dukkha everywhere, there is stress everywhere, there is unsatisfactoriness, there is suffering. Typically, you want to look at life as saying, oh, there is happiness everywhere, there is pleasure, there is joy, and stuff like that. But here is a person who is basically looking at it the other way and saying, hey, there is stress everywhere, there is suffering everywhere. And his own justification for that is that he looks at himself more as a doctor rather than as a philosopher, right? So he calls himself a doctor and a person who is trying to heal, rather than a person who is trying to give you a positive outlook towards things. So when you go to a doctor, he'll say, hey, you're suffering from this, you're suffering from that, there is this, there is that, you need to do this, you need to go do some exercise, you need to go do yoga, you need to do this to help yourself come out of a situation, come out of the stress that you're in, come out of the problems that you're in. So this is exactly what the Buddha did. He basically first identified the problems. He said, okay, these are the problems that exist. And then he also showed the path out of it. So if you just look at him saying that, okay, you have a disease, then it kind of looks negative. But his entire teaching is all about trying to overcome the stress that you have, right? So that's the concept of his teaching. So here I'll explain, or I'll kind of list out. There are about 10 to 15 forms of dukkha that he talks about, and I'll try to list those. He says birth, jatipi dukkha. So at the time of birth, you come out of your mother's womb. People are touching you, people are carrying you, there is light, you are in complete darkness inside, you came out, there is light, your eyes are getting inundated with light, there is sound, there's people touching, and there's pain, your umbilical cord is getting cut, there's so many things that are happening, you start crying, you start your life with dukkha. Jatipi dukkha. Jara, the process of aging. Every day there is aging. It's impossible to reverse it. Whatever yoga you do, whatever you don't do, the process of aging is a given. So every day you become older. In the first few years you're growing, and then you start growing. Growing less stronger. You start growing weaker. You start growing older. You start growing less capable. So the process of aging, that just the whole process has a lot of dukkha associated with it. Disease, whenever you fall sick, there is dukkha associated with it. When there is something that's wrong with your body, something that's wrong with your mind, there is dukkha associated with it. Death, right? So these are the four aspects of life, from birth to death. The two things that are governing those are the process of aging and disease, right? So maranam or death, this is also dukkha. When somebody dies, there is dukkha. The fact that you think about, oh, I may die, that itself causes dukkha. So that is dukkha. Piyehi vippayogo, being separated from who you love, right? So you like someone, you like the company of someone, and being separated from that creates stress. Appiyehi sampayogo, being in the company of those that you don't like. Sometimes you're in situations, you're in circumstances. Sometimes lifelong we are in circumstances where we are with people that we don't like, and somehow we have told ourselves some consolation or something to overcome that. But that is dukkha, just to be with in the company of people that you don't like. Yampicham na labati tampi dukkha. What you desire, not having that, is dukkha. To not have what sometimes you desire something, and the fact that you may not have it or you may not be able to get it for any reason creates stress, creates suffering. Grief, the loss of someone, the loss of something, that is dukkha. Parideva, some lamentation. Oh, this is not working for me. Oh, that is not working for me. Every time I try this doesn't work. That is lamentation. That is dukkha. Physical pain, that is also dukkha. That's also called dukkha itself. Physical pain, physical bodily pain. Domanassa. So he talks about depression. When you are unable to think clearly, when you are feeling low, that is dukkha. And finally, he says upayasa, because so many things are happening in your life. But sometimes you just say, okay, I give up. This is it. I cannot. There's just too many things that are happening. So many things that are not working. That is dukkha. So he defines dukkha as a part of everyday existence. I mean, I'm sure when you are looking at these, you can easily relate to maybe 1, 2, 5, 10, maybe all of it at different aspects, at different parts of your life, at different times of your life. So this is more or less universally there. The concept of dukkha is something that you feel and touch all the time. You are feeling dukkha because you're not with the people that you like, or because of something that went wrong earlier, because of some guilt for something or the other. So this dukkha is there everywhere. All right, so that is the definition. So I'll go a little bit into how do you apply, how do you recognize this in your life, and how do you overcome it. We'll spend a couple of minutes on that, and then we'll, take questions. So recognizing dukkha. How do you recognize that there is dukkha? When you go into the past, see, when you are in your when you're thinking, there are three aspects on which your mental processes are aligned. One is the past, the other is the present, the other is future. So if you look at the time scale, past, what is dukkha? Any regret that you have from the past, any guilt, any repentance, any things that didn't work in the past, all of that are dukkha coming in. You're like, oh my God, something didn't work. I regret, I shouldn't have said this. I shouldn't have hurt this person. I shouldn't have left this person, whatever about whatever aspect about the past that you don't kind of like, that appears in your mind as dukkha. In the present, some desire that you have, I want this, you may feel lazy, you don't want to do anything, that is dukkha. Doubt, I want to do this versus I want to do that, I want to do this versus I want to do that, I shouldn't have done this, should I go here, should I go there? confusion, that is dukkha, because it's causing frustration to your mind. Depression, and you're saying, okay, I don't want to do anything, I don't want to, I don't want to think about this because, in the past I've done it, it hasn't worked. Those kind of thoughts as well in the present are dukkha. For the future, anxiety, oh, what will happen in the future, right? Okay, now it's maybe a little bit easier to relate to now than about a year ago. With the coronavirus, I think it's some of these things are very easy to relate to. Anxiety about the future, anxiety about what's going to happen. When is the next pandemic? I guess that's the anxiety, right? So, and anxiety about what is going to happen to you now because of so many things. There are so many external circumstances that are forcing you to behave differently. Maybe several of you have, lost some opportunities. You were doing something, now you cannot do it. So many things. And you worry about those things. You worry about what may happen tomorrow. When is this all going to end? When is this going to get better? And all of those things, right? So within your own mind, there are so many of these coming from memory, coming from current thinking, coming from plans for the future, dukkha, right? And then coming away from you into your relations, dukkha shows up in the form of anger and lust, which are kind of two sides of a coin. So getting angry or subject of getting of anger from someone else, ill will, sometimes you feel, this guy, you don't like to see someone being successful, or you don't like to see someone being happy. Sometimes you don't like to see someone being better than you, some small, jealousy, ill will, all of those thoughts that revolve around those, all of those are dukkha. Anger, when you get angry on something, somebody didn't do something that you wanted that person to do, or something didn't turn out the way you wanted it to turn out, that's anger. That is dukkha. Sometimes you have lust, you don't know how to direct it, you don't know how to address it, and then you express that on a person, and then you have regret later. So this is how you interact with the world, anger, lust, ill will, and these are also expressions of dukkha. And of course, you can see this in the world as an observer, right? So it's mostly you and your relationships. But as you go and expand into the world, you see, I keep saying, sometimes I say, when I see, and this is why I call for compassion. When you see, say, I'll give a small example of, a common example of what you see maybe in your kitchen, what you see, there may be a cockroach or an ant or a rat trying to eat some food that you have dropped, and then you kill it, right? When you do that, just you're taking away the life of one other being, while that is just trying to fill its stomach. So it is dukkha. When you observe those things, that's great dukkha, where just one person trying to live is sometimes not possible, because another person thinks that is affecting him, right? So when you see, sometimes, you see these wildlife videos of a cheetah chasing a deer, but put yourself in the shoes of or in the legs of the deer, trying to run away just to live one more moment, while being in the know that you're being attacked to death, is dukkha. When you see things around the world, there is dukkha just everywhere. People are trying to survive. When you try to earn, sometimes you hurt someone. When you try to do something for yourself, in the process you hurt other people. So there is, just the fact that you're trying to live, sometimes just that itself causes grief to another person, right? So you observe these things. These are where you recognize that, oh, this is there everywhere. There is stress everywhere. When I'm saying dukkha, it's not just grief. Like I said, everything, all of these are dukkha. Just stress, grief, pain, depression, any of these are dukkha, right? So how do you overcome this? We'll just spend a couple of minutes on this. Like I said, these are topics that have been discussed at length. These are, each of these slides, I can spend a few days, but trying to keep it short, trying to keep it focused on just a few aspects, give you an outline so you can start thinking about this and appreciating the meditation a little bit more, right? So how do you overcome this? From the past, guilt, things like that. How do you overcome that? Accepting the past as it is, not trying to change it because you don't have access to it. Understanding that the past is beyond your reach and the past has already happened and cannot be changed. And accepting the past for what it is, it moves you away from dukkha. The present, focusing on the current action that you're doing, focusing on your breathing, focusing on what you need to do, and trying to stay calm within that takes you away from dukkha. Future, trying to reduce orientation, result orientation, right? Trying to reduce stress on, oh, this is what I want next year. This is what I want next year. This is what this is what should happen to me. Because the more you do that, the more you try to get people to try and help you get there. And the more you try and force other people to follow your path, the more you cause grief for them and grief for yourself. Right? How do you overcome dukkha in relationships? Be friendly and forgive people and be kind, be compassionate. Whenever you see something, try and be compassionate. When you feel angry, be compassionate. When you feel angry, understand that same anger is available in the other person as well. And try to understand and try to be calmer, more compassionate to things around you, to beings around you. Right? And recognizing that in the world, just by doing actions that reduce dukkha. Don't whenever you recognize that there is pain in the world, there is something that you're observing that is causing pain, that is sowing suffering, try to come out of it. Try to either not be a participant to it, or try to whatever extent that you can, reduce that. Right? So this is kind of how you start overcoming dukkha, right? So that is kind of all I had for today. It's already 30 minutes. I don't feel I have even started on the topic, but anyway, I'll stop. We'll take a few minutes for any questions that people have, and then we can start with the meditation.